The Splitting Hairs Podcast. Go big, go blue, go Jacks.
Welcome to the Splitting Hairs Podcast, where San Diego's not a state, Bison spelled with an S, and Wile E. Coyote never gets the job done. And gentlemen, that couldn't have been more true this past Saturday, although it looked a little bit bleak for the good guys at times. The boys in blue were able to get it done. And before we dive into all of that, let's give a shout out to our sponsors real quick. Just want to let you know that this year we have a new title sponsor, Udemark Insurance. If you or a loved one is on Medicare, you know how important it is to have a plan that fits those unique needs. With so many options out there, finding the right coverage can feel overwhelming. That's where they come in. So they're there to guide you through the ins and outs of Medicare health insurance programs, whether it's understanding the coverage writ large, exploring options for extra benefits, or keeping up with policy changes. They'll break everything down for you simply and clearly. So get in touch with them for all your health insurance needs and health products that work with Medicare. Want to shout out Cottonwood Coffee and Bistro. As always, they're our ride or dies. For Military Appreciation Week, we're going to be at home in Brookings, and you can be right at home at the Bistro with their fresh farm to table eats, as well as their caffeine they got on drip, their espresso, and all their fun seasonal beverages. If you're a tea drinker, just like the Brits, they got some stuff for you as well. Feel free to shout them out online as well. They got great ordering options to get on auto draft so you can get your fix consistently. Delivered right to your door and at a nice little discount. So check that out if that whets your palate. Shout out to them for being a sponsor. So let's dive into it, gentlemen. We had back-to-back rivalry weeks. You know, it's a big emotional dump for the guys to have to be up both weeks. Fortunately, we were at home this past week in our interstate series rivalry, which is still a rivalry these days. Especially with a much improved USD program coming in. Historically, we still have the advantage since moving to D1, which is obviously pretty resounding in the Jacks' favor. But this one kind of teetered in the balance despite such a strong showing from our defense. What are your initial impressions from it all?
It was, in terms of blood pressure, felt a lot like the Montana State game. Maybe even a little bit more bleak. Well, that was pretty on par, I guess, with that missed field goal that we were certain was going in at the end. At the end of the day, you had to appreciate two awesome defenses that were just going at it the entire game, save for those first couple of drives in the game. Maybe some offensive there were definitely some offensive miscues for both teams that bailed the opposing defenses out. Maybe a little bit more crisp for both sides would have been even more of an exciting game. In the end, the good guys get the win, and that's all that matters. But looks like we still got some stuff to clean up offensively. Mark looked pretty sharp. It was good to see that. He hit his spots. He didn't force anything. Yeah, we were just a little bit better on Saturday night, and that's what matters.
That's right.
Yeah, I would say my biggest takeaway is just we haven't peaked yet, and I think that's the coolest part about it all, you know, ups and downs. Our best football is still ahead of us, so it's pretty awesome to see.
Yeah, well put. Like I continue to harp on year after year on the pod, you want to peak in December and January in this FCS playoff contention. And you don't want to obviously come out the gates fast and then start to teeter, especially when you get into the thick of conference play. And we all know that the Missouri Valley Football Conference is a real meat grinder. But when you look at some of the other teams out there, I think it's fair to question if they've been tested to the same degree that the Jacks have, certainly. When you look at a lot of the analytics platforms out there, the strength of schedule continues to hover in the 10-7 range nationally, some coming in at 12 overall in the FCS. And I think that bodes strong as we look at the early unveiling of the FCS playoff race, when you look at the rankings and how those come out. And I think it's important to note from the work that Kevin does over at FCS Fans Nation that the coaches poll is not factored into that. And I think that that's with good reason. When you look at coaches really only examine film of their next opponent, and they're not really scouring the landscape to kind of just weigh in nationally to see who's going to potentially be in the mix later on in the year. So I think that that's a good thing. I think some of the other metrics maybe are a little bit questionable when we look at how they're going to eventually land on the top 4 seeds for sure. But again, remember, I think they're seeding. Are they seeding the top 16 now, Scott?
Yeah, top 16. So it's not like what was it, a couple of years ago? Someone
Where it's regional,
very regional, and you can essentially just buy a home game. It should clean up, maybe not all that, but it should help make it a lot more of a true tournament.
That's right. That's right. And Dan weighs in. Thanks for listening, Dan. Big friend of the pod. Definitely good to get in the win column, no matter who we're playing here, right? No matter who we play, 1-0 is 1-0, and that's all that matters at the end of it. I think we as fans and former players definitely remember some of the specifics a bit more, especially if we lined up in between the hashes. But that being said, you look 20 years down the road, all that we'll really remember is how many times we beat a team versus, how many times they might have gotten the best of us. So I think that's always exciting, especially when we look at we're still depleted, guys. Like we still got guys that need to roll back in there across the defensive line, offensive line. I think we're getting a little dinged, and we're kind of trying to find our pieces that fit in the puzzle there. And other position groups need to kind of step up. We talked about it in our thread, our Splitting Hairs thread, about how, historically last year, I think the defense obviously was extremely stout, but the way some of the units have played this year have been pretty admirable, right? Like got some fresh blood on the D line. I just don't know if maybe we have the depth at end that we were accustomed to the past couple of years with Tervier and Reese Winkleman and some of those cats, but it's good that we're starting to see guys like Ruperta step up. Hopefully he's healthy. Randy Kay get in there. Obviously Kobe Claiborne making a name for himself across the line. You also have the Priest, man. The Priest is stepping up. I wanted to see a bit more pressure this week, but this is really your forte, Brian. What did you like that you saw from the defensive side of the ball on the line?
Yeah, I mean, I think for like the first 3 quarters, we were doing a really good job of stopping the run. In the fourth quarter, it kind of got away from us. Maybe too many people in the wrong gap. But I mean, at the end of the day, win's a win. So
and shut them down in the run game.
Yeah.
Outside of a couple plays that they kind of busted or a quarterback run here and there, I think I did the math in the Rabbits recap that you can check out on our Substack at Splitting Hairs Media. We had only surrendered about 63 net rushing yards on them, which is insane.
Yeah.
Insane. Right now, to their credit, they really put a clamp down on our rushing attack as well. Now, Angel got out on them pretty decently at 81 yards. Mark ran all over him for about 51 yards. The real question mark was Amar. Like, what was going on with him? And I think we'd be remiss if we didn't shine the light on the 605 Hogs, who are really playing more like a 603, 604 Hogs, where not all 5 are playing together. For those of you who don't know, the 605 Hogs, obviously 605 is the area code for the entire state of South Dakota. And that's, 60 minutes of football, 5 guys playing as one. Didn't really look like that at times on Saturday night. Now it did in other instances where they're absolutely moving the pile 15 yards downfield. But at other times they were letting defensive linemen fall off way too quick, making tackles at the line of scrimmage, and obviously really impacting Mark in the passing game. So that's got to clean up. I think we need a bit more grit and fight across the line. We need to be more technically sound so that we can really get a leg up on them. And like we've said, historically, play ahead of the sticks. So what are you guys' take on the running game from last week, and then also what we're able to do through the air or not do?
Yeah, I would say, one thing Coach Rogers preached on a lot, during my time there was just like focus finish, right? And I think we just aren't finishing sometimes. And once we get that figured out, I think we'll really find our peak and, go to the next level. But until then, we just got to finish.
So finishing blocks like
Yeah,
beast,
I mean, all together as a
man.
team, not just one. I mean, I wouldn't say one specific area, but I mean, when the whole team's moving together.
I'm glad you brought that up, Brian, because Scott, and I want to get your opinion on this, but this is a great time to sprinkle it in. I think we took for granted to an extreme degree the Yankees blocking ability, right? We've talked about that on the thread, but just seeing how hard they would fight into the box to secure second level defenders so that those big runs by Zay or by Amar or by Mark could really get sprung. And then you're seeing last week some quick passes out on the edge to Wildy, and guys can't even secure a block on DBs. Now their DBs were very good last week, but you got to do your 111th, right? And just like Brian's saying, everybody's got to focus and finish and take every rep, whether it's a receiving rep or a blocking rep, with the same level of tenacity and seriousness.
Yeah, I think not to call anyone out specifically, but there was a major missed block on that scoop and score. I think we were texting about that earlier today. One of our wide receivers completely whiffed on a block, and that Dennis Shorter came barreling through, and we all saw it happen. There was a lot of, the surrender cobras in the stands like this. They scoop and score, and now it's a tie game. We absolutely took for granted what we had before when, someone would at least get a chip on that second level player. And, instead of a, ball popping out and a scoop and score, you might get stopped for a loss of a couple, or maybe just get back to the line of scrimmage instead of having him, barrel in there with his helmet on the ball. A really good block on that, and I think we're running for a while because the O-line actually did a pretty good job. Receiver missed the block, and that's everybody blocking together, the entire team. One instance where someone might not have, and it was close to costing us big time. Well, it did cost us in the game, in the moment, and it could have led to an L instead of a W.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Brian. No,
Okay.
all you.
One thing I would say too is just like in the finishing aspect is we were really close, if you look at it, of not giving up a touchdown.
Mm-hmm.
In that first drive that they drove, we held them. It was going to be a 4th down, and we got a holding call, which put them right there. So then they get another 4 tries to try at it again. That would have been a field goal. We give up the scoop and score. Defense can't control that.
Right.
So that's another. I mean, we're really right there whenever we get to finish, like the finishing aspect. If we just, clean some stuff up and don't shoot ourselves in the foot, I mean, I think we're going to be really good. So.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. The defense is only surrendered. So I did the math. It's in Rabbit's Roundup, so I might be off by a hair, pun intended here. But when you look at the last 6 games, 42 points, I believe, 42 to 45 points total surrendered. That's a 7-point clip. That is championship football against 2 of the premier, offensive contenders in the game, in the Bison and in the Yotes. And I think, you have to consider everything within the context of a whole. I'm looking at my guy, Coach Rogers, and I'm seeing him, and there's a lot of excitement and anticipation from the fans, as you can see, because, Scott, you were there. I'd like to see them be louder a little longer, but they still did their damnedest and got loud when they needed to at times, forcing some false starts and some procedural errors and some yips from the snapper at USD. But still, I think the pressure is starting to really be known in a good way. But I think we also just, as former players and as someone who wants to see everything remain in context and perspective, this team is still a good team with a lot left on the table. So I think we got to consider that. And we just went toe to toe and threw some haymakers with the best in the biz right now. 2 top 5 teams, one on the road in the toughest place to play. While Dana is definitely on the come up in terms of tough places to play. So that's exciting to see, because I didn't foresee that when I was playing. That's for sure. And then I want to switch over to this really quickly, because Kevin brings up a good point. Yotes did a great job of picking up the blitz. We lit them up in terms of blitzing. I was starting to get a little bit anxious because we kept blitzing Like, it's like, hey, we're going to light you up. And
Mhm.
that's great. I'm just not accustomed to seeing us blitz that much. And as we all know, when you blitz, you leave some guys on an island. So that shows that Bobbitt really trusts the second level defenders in blue to be able to get the job done. And they did. But that said, I think the Yotes kind of fumbled some opportunities too, with some timely play calling and some absolutely curious play calling on that halfback pass. I don't know what the hell they were thinking. So
Game ball, Jason Eck.
yeah, right. Game
Right?
ball. Yeah, why? Because of his influence on Coach Davis.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, you can say that.
Yeah.
I'll give Coach Eck a game ball. Let's go.
Yep.
Get a big man Selly in there, Coach Eck.
That's right.
Yeah, that's good stuff. But I think before we put this one fully to rest, I think we look at how we start the game too. Kickoff out of bounds, procedural penalty. That's got to stop. Like, that's pretty ridiculous at this point. Looking at opportunities with PAT, that consistently questionable in terms of snaps or in terms of not being physical at the point of contact on the line from the Hogs. And then you look at the missed field goal. I mean, Dustman's punting the lights out of the ball, pinning them inside the 20, inside the 10, left and right. But when it comes to execution, we talk about focusing and finishing. Well, finishing is a part of execution as well when it comes to kickoff. So we need to make sure that if we're going to try to pin them with those corner kicks, that we actually pin them and we don't do ourselves a disservice, right? So if we're going to put it out of the back of the end zone, maybe go that route. That said, I know that they had a dangerous returner, and that's always something to keep in mind. But I think we can trust our kickoff coverage to out physical the opponent because they've shown a knack for that thus far this year, right, Brian?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, I feel like we could kick it to anybody.
That's what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
Like Stone was on the pod a couple weeks ago. He's like, NDSU is going to kick it to Angel. Now they kicked touchbacks left and right in that game, so it wasn't really an issue. But you can't be afraid. Scared money don't make money, right?
Yeah, I mean, last year they were saying the same thing about don't kick it to the kid from Montana.
Yeah,
we kicked it.
Yeah, we kicked it right to him. Yep.
Yeah,
Junior Bergen. That's right. Yeah, you just got to be able to go out there and do your job, and everybody has to be bought in and take it with the same level of seriousness. I think that's what it comes down to, and we can try to, analyze it to high heaven, but I think at the end of the day, you just have to execute, and hopefully Coach Cashman is getting everybody lined up the way they're supposed to be, taking those reps seriously in practice, so that way it can transfer onto the game field the way it needs to. Because with a lot of the meat of our schedule behind us, there's still two pretty large games looming. And one might call this upcoming game, which we might as well dive into, somewhat of a trap game, right? A classic trap game. Are the guys going to be fatigued mentally from the last couple of weeks? Are they going to be exhausted and not take the opponent seriously? Or are they going to rise up and want to really make a statement and completely exhaust their own opponent? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like we have to go out there and dominate, first 3 quarters and try to get some young guys some reps. I mean, just to really get some experience under their belts and the conference play, it's a big difference in playing Augustana or, anybody like that. Actually getting some real conference reps is big time.
Definitely.
For sure. I mean, it would really behoove them to just go out and look really sharp so that we can, yank them out after, well, hopefully by halftime. No disrespect to Murray State. They're really struggling this year to keep up with the rest of the Valley. I mean, it's only their second year in, but they really do need to come out and look sharp just to save some reps, some blows to their bodies, and get those young guys some of those valuable live conference reps. Because as in 2022, when we had so many guys banged up, those extra reps came in really, really valuable. And last year too, because all those compounded live game reps can really wear on you late in the season when you don't have to play the fourth quarter a lot of times, like happened last year. you can really save yourself for those deep playoff runs. This would be a really good game for them to really come out and play well, show some fireworks off for the fans. It's almost a sellout. I think there's only a few hundred seats left. It's possible they don't come out quite as sharp, but I think there's really some things to work on in practice that they want to correct. So it would kind of surprise me if they came out really flat.
I agree. And I think if you look at the defense is what is the glue. They're the glue guys, I think, right now. And one thing that you always want to be able to hang your hat on when you have an offense that's kind of slowly progressing throughout the year is excellent defense and good special teams, which we have seen solid special teams, relatively speaking, throughout the course of the year, with the exception of, I would say, just our PAT field goal operation. And, I think when you examine the last 6 games in a nutshell, I think we've really been trending in the right direction, all things considered. And when you look at the last few games, really the whole body of work from Murray State so far in their second season in Valley play, they got blanked by Missouri. That's understandable, SEC school, right? They got beat by Butler, non-scholarship Butler. They pummeled Mississippi Valley State 59-8. That's their one win on the year. North Dakota put a 70-piece on them, 72-35. That was in Grand Forks. South Dakota blanked them 59-0. So you're already looking at 2 shutouts that you surrender on the year. Indiana State beat them. Mm-hmm. Illinois State, though, at Murray State, only beat them by 8 points, 40-32. So there are some things with matchups that always factor in, regardless of the quality of the opponent and how they performed to date. Then you look at North Dakota State, threw up 59 on them, and I think they had 21 in the first quarter, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, first quarter. Dan just shouted that out. Thanks, Dan. And yeah, they didn't run a second down play in the first quarter. So, and that's at Murray State in Kentucky. So, I mean, I think like when you look at the quality of programs that the Dakotas and the SDSUs are, and you look at their production overall, I mean, you're looking at 59 is the average so far between South Dakota and North Dakota State, with a 72 piece from North Dakota. So we're not anywhere near predictions, but in terms of what our offensive line and defensive line hopefully is able to do, because I think that's where you see the biggest disparity, right, Brian? I mean, you played at Valdosta State. You saw the biggest disparity there, and you were an All-American there. And then you were a huge contributor on a back-to-back national championship team. Those lines are where you can exploit the biggest difference.
The line is the biggest difference between every level. You know, like when I was at Valdosta State, I mean, we played big guys, but they weren't able to move like the Valley, So it was a big jump for me, just getting used to the speed, I would say, even for just like as a personal experience. And I would say that's one thing that they have to deal with as well, is because, I mean, the Southern schools, we don't – like if you're a big-time like Southern guy, you're probably going to Power 5, Group of 5 schools instead of going to FCS if you can move really well.
Exactly. And to that point, the reason being is because in the South, there's a lot more Group of 5 saturation, right? There's Power 4 and Group of 5 saturation all throughout that region, because in the South, football is a religion versus up north where you have people who aren't necessarily as devoted throughout spring. You don't have the population numbers, so your schools aren't as big. So you got guys who are playing more sports, which is probably good for health and longevity and your overall football ceiling. But that being said, it's a different ball game when you get into those Power 4 levels as far as line play goes. And then, so when you look at Murray State coming from Kentucky, they got Louisville there, they got UK or KU, I think it's University of Kentucky, UK. Yeah. And then, you got all the Indiana schools kind of locally there, and then you're not too far from the East Coast. So Murray State probably doesn't have the same kind of investment in their football program. They probably are more like an OVC, which is where I think they were in terms of their conference affiliation like previous years. And now they're stepping up into the meat grinder with the Dogs. So
I think that was a lot more of a basketball move for the Missouri Valley Conference, because they have a very stout basketball program. But football, I mean, they had to go somewhere. That's a big time move from the OVC to the MVFC.
I think if the Citadel was located up north, Kevin would be more pro north, but he thinks that the South is far superior, which I can't knock that. I grew up in Georgia, but I'm a halvesy. I'm a half breed, so it's tough.
Charleston is a beautiful city too. I've been there. It's very nice. I'll give them that.
Amazing. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So yeah, I think this is worth noting because I watched that as well. He knows they're not big enough or physical enough yet in terms of the head coach at Murray State. This was in his presser on the lines to be where they want to be in the Valley. But that said, a good coach can maybe scheme up some things. If the ball bounces a certain way, you never know how it might turn out. So I'm of the opinion I always like to take the opponent very seriously and respect them, and then just beat the hell out of them with execution. Mm-hmm. That's kind of where I'm at. And Brian, maybe you could weigh in a little bit on kind of the psychology, since you're a lot closer to the game than myself. What was it like when you're coming off a hard-fought game and then you have maybe an opponent that's underachieved or just doesn't have the rapport that some of these big dogs have? What's it like going into a game like that?
Yeah, I mean, I think Coach Rogers does a really good job of, throwing that shit out the window. Oh, sorry, I don't know if I can say that.
No, we keep it real on here.
Sorry. Okay, well, he throws that shit out the window. The records don't matter. We're going 1-0 each week, and, I mean, how you prepare is how you're going to play, and I don't think anyone is going to prepare better than us. So,
yeah, I would agree with that for sure.
And I would say also last year, we had a lot of senior leadership. So I would say it also comes down to the guys in the locker room. Are we letting guys take reps off? Are we, still pushing to, go 1-0 and really dominate the week?
Yeah,
I think this week actually really says a lot about the maturity of the team. So it'll be exciting to see on that aspect as well.
Yeah, and I want to hit on that maturity because I got to say this, man. Mark's got a ton of heat this year. And the way he performed on Saturday, man, 20 of 27, throwing guys open, putting the ball in only areas where his receiver could catch it, navigating the pocket, letting it go under duress, scrambling when we needed a play and we needed yardage, putting his body on the line at 6'3", 235. I mean, just being a dog. And that's one thing I think people forget about, and I'm going to hammer it again. It is not a knock that he is a very solid RPO two-read quarterback who extends plays and just wins ball games, right? And at the end of the day, I've heard slights like he's a drugstore tight end, drugstore quarterback, all this, knockoff QB type stuff. I'll take him 7 days out of the week and twice on Sundays, right? Like, if you're telling me a guy who's been to 3 straight national titles in his time when he's actually been healthy to play, literally can count his losses on one hand at the FCS level, and was a Walter Payton Award winner. I mean, I don't know what else you want from him. He can only do what he can do within the scope of the offense. So I hope everybody realizes, and I think they do. I think, Brian, I think you could speak to this more, but this is his last go of it. So if you care about your brother lining up next to you, this is his last go at South Dakota State in blue and white. And what are there, 3 games left at home guaranteed, maybe 2?
Yeah, I mean, one thing it was awesome to see is he actually looked really confident again.
He did.
It's almost like he got it back. And I think that's one thing we were speaking on last week is we just wanted to see him play with confidence. Mm-hmm. And to see him come out and, really attack the game that way, it was awesome to see. So shout out to him.
Hell yeah. The jitters, right, Scott? He didn't look like he had happy feet. He felt calm. I mean, the juice in the Fargo Dome sometimes can take over. And, I'm speaking as a fullback, but, I mean, Mark does play the quarterback position with a savage mentality, right? Like, it was a mantra I pushed out there when he first started as a freshman that he's built different. Like, he really is. And so I think a lot of times when those competitive juices get flowing, it's hard to temper that. And I think he just moved back to that old mantra that he has, which is just be you, be himself. And I think that paid dividends because he wasn't trying to do too much. He was taking what the defense gave him and exploiting it when it came to his legs on the ground. So it's a good point. We got here. There's this chat is blowing up. I love it. Veteran presence is huge. And yeah, we're stealing that target demographic. We are.
Okay.
hit on that maturity. All right. Wow. I love it. I love it. Good stuff,
Good
guys. We
chat.
appreciate you weighing in the chat. I think it'd be good to address Tucker Large coming back. Did we get a chance to kind of get eyes on him, see how he was playing? Did he look like he had a little pep in his step? Didn't really look labored.
He looked really good in coverage. I think that's one thing why the blitz picked back up a little bit is just that extra blanket in the secondary, you know. I mean, that's one thing you get to do whenever you have a guy like Tuck. You get to just throw the whole package at everybody. So
and I will say that we've been blitzing pretty healthily this year, but it did seem like, okay, we're good on the back end. We got guys that know where they're supposed to be. You saw a lot of great relaying of communication. I got to say this too. At first instinct, I hated the timeouts that we took, but when Jim took the timeouts, he knew his team and like he had a pulse on the team. So it's just a good measure for fans to be like, he probably sees and knows something that we don't, even if it doesn't seem like a time where you would normally take a timeout, because those were perfect. He called timeouts in the right situation, and the outcome we needed to have happened. And then also shout out to him for not trying to force the issue and just get the game into overtime at the end, because last thing you want is to force Mark into a situation where he's throwing up a Hail Mary, and then you got the 605 Hogs having to chase down a DB. So that's just astute observations and game management by Coach Rogers and staff. So that's really important.
I would say we blitzed a little bit more too, because I mean, I could be wrong, but it looked like Youngstown State got after South Dakota pretty heavily in blitzing. So I think that's just something they had seen on tape the week before.
Exactly. And they picked up the blitz pretty well. I will say this, man, as much as we clown on them just because it's fun too, and we should, USD's quarterback, Aiden Bauman, he's a pretty good quarterback. Navigating the pocket, getting the ball downfield. And I know a lot of times, even when we didn't get home, this would be a good spot to weigh in, Brian. We got him off his spots.
I mean, that's huge. I mean, that's one thing, you know, nowadays the sack numbers are lower, but that's just because of how much RPO's in the game now. QB pressure now is seen as a sack.
Yeah.
You know, I've got a few friends that, you know, actually made it to the next level at the D-line spot, and they count pressures just like they do sacks sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, because your margin of error at that level in order to be able to get a sack, especially with the timing, is so slim. So forcing QBs off their spots is massive. And then at this level, you know, accuracy dwindles a little bit when you're talking about quarterbacks being on target. So if you can get them off their spots, it just bodes even better for your secondary, right?
And
go ahead.
Why did they pull? I don't know why they pulled him to. I know they did pulling for
was
the
he hurt?
line, but
Was he hurt?
No, I think on film, I think every time they pull him was for that backup QB to come in and run, kind of like a Chase Mason situation. But what a terrible time to pull him. I mean, I feel like you just got to grit it out and take a QB run and get hit one time.
I mean, dude, I like. You talk about being too caught up in the element of the game sometimes as a coordinator, and like, I mean, I think he thought he was going to catch us sleeping, but we were in the perfect defense on that halfback pass. Looked kind of like everybody was bailing. We were in quarters. I think our linebackers were hitting the side pockets really well, and Graham just, you know, obviously read it, and the ball sailed, and the timing was off. And that's another one, right? Jared DePriest forcing the issue because he got great penetration. I think they even highlighted that on ESPNU as well. So that was just another excellent execution and a very questionable call. And then, you know, when they started moving the ball late, I got a little nervous because, you know, they were starting to get some momentum, and then you had their center just completely shit the bed and dribble a ball back there after.
Well, that's what I'm talking about is they put the backup QB in to run the ball.
Yep.
I don't think he had been in much all game.
He'd been in one other time. He had a 14
to catch a snap at the most pivotal point. I don't know. Shout out Coach Davis.
Yeah, thanks, Coach JD. That's a dub. Coach Davis, you mad, as Stig would say. We love it. We love it. All love. But yeah, so like moving forward, I know we jump back into the South Dakota game, but moving forward this week, we're going to keep it light. There's not a lot to dive into on this opponent, unfortunately, but I think it'll be good nonetheless. It is Military Appreciation Week, so we should shout out all the servicemen and women who have protected this country in every form or fashion. We greatly appreciate your service and all you do for the Stars and Bars. It's a great opportunity. We're not a political podcast, but I would like to encourage everybody to vote because these military service members put their life on the line for us to be able to have that right and privilege that is not extended to all countries throughout the world. So we should keep that in mind. So with that being said, we should also take time to remember my former teammate and any other folks that you guys might know and anybody listening might know who have passed away. Matt Anderson passed away earlier this year, and that was a tough loss for the Jackrabbit family. So we salute them, the whole Anderson family and his kiddos who are going to navigate life without their dad. So let's keep him in our thoughts and prayers and honor him the right way on Saturday with a big dub. Moving forward, we're going to talk about players of the game. Who are our thoughts this week? Who are we looking at? Who are we keeping our eyes on for players of the game on the defensive side of the ball? We'll start with Scott.
Oh, let's see. We'll go with Jared DePriest. We talked about those big differences, Southern teams or teams that coming from the Ohio Valley, Murray State might not match up very well. I think DePriest is going to be a wrecking ball in there.
I'm going to go Dallas Beanham. I feel like they know that, they're not going to be able to run the ball a whole lot. They're going to try to get it out to the receivers, quick game, maybe take a shot or two. So I look for him to have a big game.
I love it. I'm surprised. I thought you were going to go chain gang, but that
he went chain gang. So I was like, well, I guess I got to spread the love. Can't be a homer my whole life.
I appreciate that because that allows me to go chain gang. I'm going to go Kobe Claiborne. I think that where the D-line can feast is on the offensive side of the ball for Murray State. I think their O-line is going to be they're going to have their work cut out for them. Let's just put it to you that way. And I think I would like to see how we approach it. Are we going to light them up with some blitzing? Are we going to play more base coverage schemes? What are we going to do to really force the issue with them? And I think Kobe eats off the edge. All right. So moving forward to offense, who do we like, Scott?
I think Amar rides his walk-off touchdown with into this game with a big game of let's go at least 120. He'll follow the 605 Hogs and watches cutbacks a little bit and really get after it and get downhill.
I'm glad you brought up Amar. Before we talk about it, Brian, I hope we don't get into some bad habits against this team as far as early bouncing, because I think he's going to easily be able to get outside on the perimeter, right? And I know Coach Rouse is working with them and drilling it, but for plays that are supposed to hit inside zone, inside run, I love his patience. He's probably got the best patience in the FCS game right now. But once he has patience to the hole, he needs to have speed through it, right? And I hope he continues to press the A or B gap when it's there and not look to bounce it because he's so athletic. Those are things that great RBs with awesome instinct and vision like him, they can fall privy to. So I want to see him get back on some more of that technical aspect of running the ball. Same thing with Angel. I mean, Angel's a bit more powerful, I would say, through contact. So I want to see how they both respond. And then it'll be great to see if, Brian, is KTV coming back?
No idea. I hope so.
Yeah.
Another Florida boy. So
that's right. What do we think on offense, Brian? Who you got?
I'm going to go Wildy.
I like it.
I like Wildy this week just because, play action pass. I feel like we'll run the ball really well, but I feel like we're going to take some shots too just to open up the pass game.
Mm-hmm.
I like it. I'd love to go with a tight end and be a homer myself. I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to go Graham Goring. I think he's come along. He's really established a nice connection with Mark. really been a good safety valve in key moments like the little 7-yard crossing route that he ran late in overtime really was pivotal because it allowed us to just flex our muscle and run and pound it in. So I'm going to go Graham Goring. I think he gets closer to the century mark if he doesn't surpass it.
Shout out Dave Alpers too. He's been blocking his ass off this.
Yes, sir. He has. And Alpers is 83. Stoffel as well. I mean, Stoffel at times has been doing great. But I would agree, man. David he flat backed a couple guys on national television. That's always a nice little feather in the cap.
Yeah.
So moving on to special teams, let's make it special this week, please. We called out Dustman. Dustman's been a hell of a punter. We called him out in the North Dakota State game. Thought he was going to light it up there. Leaving some room on the table. Do we think he gets off the schneid, gentlemen? Who we got for special teams, Scott?
Hopefully he has quite a few reps in terms of scoring opportunities. PATs, hopefully. Let's see. Yeah, I mean, I think he should be fine. There shouldn't be as much pressure, in this game. Be a good time to tighten some things up. And I think, obviously, we know he can do it. He's got the ability to. Just like the rest of the team, it'd be a good time to come out sharp. So I'll call him out. Yeah, let's have a day, Dustman. I think he can do it.
Nice. Who do we got, Brian?
Special teams. I mean, the easy choice is Dustman, but I'd like to see another return. So I'm going to go Angel.
I like it. Yeah, I want to see some folks. I'm gonna go a different route here because I want us to exploit every phase of the game on Saturday. I'm gonna go special teams, Cullen McShane. I want to see if we can't get another punt block because I have a feeling that their punt unit might be on the field quite a bit, as in Murray State, and I want to see how that affects the game. It's worth noting, since we did that and before we get into predictions, that weather can be a great equalizer. It does look like 60 degrees is – let's see. Yeah, 60 degrees is in the forecast in Brookings with a low of 30, and it does look like there's supposed to be a chance of rain later in the game. Oh, that's later in the day. Nah, no rain. That's crazy. Most of the day looks kind of suspect in terms of precipitation, but 2 till 4 looks to be good. 60 degrees and just slightly cloudy. So that's great. Who knows about the wind? It can be a wind tunnel down there at the Dana J, which can impact kicking as well. That'll be something to keep an eye on. Brian, that friggin' what was it? Villanova game last year. Unreal. Like that pretty much created an offense for them because it took away our offensive air power. And wild one. So now, right? I mean, I think we probably hold our opponent to even fewer points total in the playoffs if that win didn't neutralize a lot of our ability to possess the ball on offense too. All right, so now let's get into predictions. I read you guys the stats from the other beatdowns from the Dakota schools and read you their resume overall with the closest game in Valley play being Illinois State 2 weeks ago at 40-32. What do you guys think?
60-3. One more than the average of the rest of the Dakotas. Or no, our last two opponents.
Yeah. It'd be like 65.5-3, I think.
Right. 60-3, that's mine.
I like to see, a shutout again. We shut Youngstown State out, right?
No,
63-13, I think.
Yep, they got 13.
Gotcha. I was thinking of last year. Sorry.
Oh.
But I'd like to see like 50, 53-0, 52-0. We got to get one, boys.
I like that. I'm going to go 56-0. I think they're pissed off that they gave up points that they did to other opponents that they really could have shut them out. So let's get that average even lower, boys, throughout the season here so far. Let's make a statement. Let's get everybody back healthy. Let's get more guys rolled in for reps. Let's get 2 and 3 depth. guys on the chart going in, and let's really make some hay while the getting's good. I think we've covered everything. That's excellent. So it was a quick pod today. I appreciate you guys joining. Stack will be back with us next week. He's doing his 111th. He's riding with Mr. DePriest to the game. So we're making sure that he's our sideline reporter for us this weekend, getting all the details. That's right. Getting all the details and inside scoop.
Maybe he can go live from the sideline.
Right? Yeah. We'll take calls next week.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, with that, everybody, again, go out and vote. Do your duty. Do your civic duty to have your voice heard, and definitely have your voice heard on Saturday. That's what I wanted to bring up. There's tickets remaining. Scott touched on it earlier. Make sure you scoop up whatever's left, man. You only have so many more opportunities to watch this iteration of the Jacks, and it is a stout one. So make sure you do it, and make sure you impact the game. It makes such a difference, man. On third down, when you got your knuckles in the dirt and you're about to rush that passer, Brian knows exactly what I'm talking about. When that crowd is lit, it's a whole different ball game, man. So make sure you're loud, you show up. Students, cause a ruckus, man. Get in the opponent's head. Do your best Dennis Rodman. And if you don't know who that is, Google him.
Mm-hmm.
Google him. Good stuff, gentlemen. Well, thank you again for weighing in. Thank you to everybody who followed along and contributed in the chat. And with that, go big, go blue, go Jacks.
Go Jacks.